sensors that were on the Voyager, for the lighting, for the navigation system for the Voyager, sold that company to 3M, and then he was able to do a lot of research on going, further into this whole question of what is our consciousness. And he's the one that taught me a little bit about quantum physics. I don't pretend, I'm not a scientist at all, to understand it in its full complexity, but he did teach me the concept that the world is non-local, and things are actually connected across time and space.
Tell us what you mean by that non-locality. Explain that.
Well, if you look at Newton, Isaac Newton, for 350 years, gave us pretty much our basic science tenets. But then in the early 1900s, quantum physicists started coming out, like Werner Heisenberg, and there was the Copenhagen theory and the quantum Bell theory. And basically they said, looking at the atom at the subatomic level, at the teeniest, tiniest particle, it actually behaved differently. Both energy and matter behave differently than they did in the regular physical, like the normal physics. So what the two most important pieces, I think, are that it's non-local, meaning things can be crossing across time and space. If that's true, for me, it meant that Max could have figured out a way to come across from another realm. And then the other big tenet that they practice is that our consciousness can influence energy and matter. And that's where, if you believe consciousness exists outside of the brain, then if your body dies and your brain dies, it still goes on. Then it has the power to influence, meaning possibly Max was able to get that powder up there through his consciousness.
And of course, that would explain the zillions of experiences people have had over millennia, or at least over centuries, of communicating or somehow contacting beyond entities or consciousnesses beyond death. I mean, we've had reports of this forever, pretty much, right?
Yes.
And that would explain
it. We've always had the debunkers, all the skeptics who said it's not true. But it's so interesting in life because we don't have proof that these things exist, but we have evidence that they do. We have the evidence because the people telling the stories are telling their stories, and that's the evidence.
And while debunkers may think that they're being logical and coherent, as it turns out, there's no debunking evidence, right? There's no evidence that it's wrong.
Right.
And they miss that point.
Yes. In fact, Dr. Dean Radin said the most interesting thing. He said critical thinking is a double-edged sword.
Right.
It must be applied to any claim, including the claims of the skeptics.
Right. And the skeptics have, as it turns out, the skeptics have no evidence that it's not true. They have zero evidence.
That's right.
Right? So the preponderance of evidence is that it is true.
I think that's right. And people don't have a reason to make this up. There's not... Many times it's grief, sadly, that will prompt it, because I think you're more open and vulnerable. In fact, another thing Dean Radin said to me that was probably one of the most important things I learned on this journey, he said, people often say, I'll believe it when I see it. He said, you'll see it
when you believe
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that begs the question. That brings up an interesting question, though, Jane, just in terms of, holding your feet to the fire, if I might do that. How do you know that you didn't create this? How do you know that you didn't actually manifest this yourself, and that your husband, Max, is not around, but you actually manifested this through your desires or your wishes or your beliefs?
Yes, I think it's a completely valid question. I can't prove that.
Right.
I can't prove that I didn't. I in my heart, I don't believe it that I did, only because I wouldn't know how. But that doesn't mean that my intent didn't play a role. If you look at Bruce Grayson's near-death experiences chapter, he talks about that, and that was the most emotional of all the interviews I had was with him, because he said, is it possible that you're made of the same thing? If you think about love, and love is the source of whatever power it is that generates these activities, if that's true, it's possible if you're not inside your body and you're some sort of consciousness, you coexist. So maybe Max and I together somehow did this. And if I hadn't been, playing an active role, he couldn't have accomplished it.
That's beautiful. In other words, even though he's passed away, you're still connected. There's still a connection between the two, and you're still actually in contact, even though he's out of the body. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time. But the most important thing out of all of this, whether it happened or whether it didn't happen, the most important thing is how did it affect your life? How did it change your life? And what do you want other people to know about the possibilities of life beyond death, of consciousness beyond death of the physical body?
Well, I think the way it changed me is I live in the present far more now. I pay attention. And I'm not as distracted by the mundane activities of everyday life. I try harder with every single human interaction to really be in that moment and give the respect and dignity to that moment. And I think that I learned that the veil between this life and the afterlife is far more porous than we realize. And that, again, it's bridged by love. And I guess what I would say to others, if I could say anything, it would be, to your listeners, it would be to just stay open and to treasure the people in your life, the love that you have with them, and then to, if you can, have the confidence that one day, we're all going to die. None of us think that we will, but we are. And the idea that we can have more peace about it, knowing that we go on in another form.
Well said. Thank you so much, Janice Efi-Durham. Beautiful, wonderful story. What's your website, real quick?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's thehandonthemirror.org.
Thehandonthemirror.org. Wonderful book. God bless you, Janice. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks so much.
Take care. That was Janice Efi-Durham. Her book is The Hand on the Mirror, A True Story of Life Beyond Death. And it's really, really cool story. Very easy to read and very life-changing as well. All right. Tomorrow we'll continue talking skin health. We'll move on past vitamin A. We've been talking about vitamin A for a while now. We'll talk about some more nutrients that you could use for keeping your skin young and healthy and beautiful, no matter what your skin health issue is. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You've been listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back at you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Have yourselves a wonderful, awesome, beautiful, spectacular day. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.
Making the right decisions is a challenge to investors. Are we going to see economic growth, slide into a recession, or at worst, depression? Hi, Ted Anderson from Midas Resources. We all know when a company acts irresponsibly, divesting ourselves in a move towards safety is prudent. When the market becomes volatile, U.S. Treasuries are a safe haven. But what do you do when the U.S. government overextends itself and spends beyond its means? Many investors are turning toward gold as a common-sense alternative to traditional paper investments. Midas Resources has put together a powerful book titled 10 Reasons to Own Gold, discussing costs, benefits, risks, featuring full-color illustrations, weights, and measures. The book is free and can be yours by calling 800-686-2237. Paper investments are dwarfed by gold's 6,000-year history. Discover how gold may be right for you and your IRA by calling 800-686-2237. Whether buying or it's time for you to sell, the book is free. Call 800-686-2237.
If the IRS has garnished your paycheck or seized money from your bank account, you need to get professional tax help now. Fast action is required to put a halt to these aggressive IRS collection tactics. You can count on the knowledgeable team of tax professionals at Wall & Associates. With over 30 years of experience, Wall & Associates has settled the tax problems of thousands of taxpayers for a small fraction of what they owed. For a free face-to-face consultation, call 1-800-425-4610 to put a wall between you and the IRS. 1-800-425-4610 or look for us on the web at wallandassociates.net. We solve tax problems. If you hire Wall & Associates today, you'll never have to talk to the IRS again. To stop the levies and seizures today, take action now. Call Wall & Associates at 1-800-425-4610. Wall & Associates. 1-800-425-4610.